Destruction doesn't always come with fire. It doesn't need blood. It doesn't need raised voices, public scandals, or revenge plots. Sometimes the most devastating form of destruction is the one no one sees, not because it's hidden, but because it's calculated. This is what Machiavelli understood better than any man of his time, that to destroy someone completely, you don't confront them head-on. You make them unravel themselves. You don't throw punches. You give them room to speak. You don't attack their position. You elevate it just enough for the fall to be spectacular. The moment you react, you enter their game. And reaction is weakness. But when you refuse to react, when you remain still while they thrash, mock, provoke, and perform, you starve them, not of attention, but of oxygen. And without oxygen, their fire dies. Here's how it works. Someone insults you. Someone disrespects you. Someone undermines you in front of others. Most people would respond with retaliation, words, emotion, defensiveness. But Machiavelli would smile, because he knew true control begins where reaction ends. The goal is not to fight. The goal is to position yourself so precisely, so calmly, so unmoved that every move they make becomes a mirror, and they end up exposing themselves while you say nothing. This is your first weapon. Stillness. Stillness isn't passivity. Stillness is a form of dominance that confuses your enemy. They expect noise. They expect heat. They want you to get emotional so they can point and say, "See, look how unstable they are." But when you don't give them that, they start looking unstable themselves. The more they talk, the more desperate they seem. The more they explain, the more guilty they appear. The more they provoke, the more irrelevant their position becomes. Because the moment someone starts trying to convince others of their power, they've already lost it. This is what Machiavelli weaponized: perception. He didn't need to out-argue his enemies. He let them argue with themselves in public, in confusion, in desperation, until their credibility collapsed. And when the dust settled, he wasn't just standing. He was elevated. Now, here's how you take that same strategy and apply it with brutal precision. Let someone insult you in front of others. Don't flinch. Don't respond. Don't even blink. Instead, pause, then calmly look at them. Not with anger, not with surprise, just observe them. Let the silence stretch a few seconds too long. Let the discomfort build around their words, then change the subject. Speak to someone else. Continue as if they hadn't spoken at all. You've now reframed the entire room. They expected a battle. You gave them a non-event. And in that moment, you sent the most Machiavellian signal of all. You are not important enough to disturb my peace. The crowd sees this. Even if they don't understand what happened, they feel it. Something shifted. You didn't escalate. You didn't fold. You didn't ask for validation. You owned the silence. And in that silence, they began to shrink. Because here's the secret. Most people don't want to defeat you. They want to control the narrative around you. They want to make you look weak, feel humiliated, appear unbalanced. So you flip the script. You give them nothing to work with. And everything they say begins to echo back on themselves. Let them talk. Let them explain. Let them rant, accuse, point fingers, while you move with cold composure. Behind the scenes, you start doing real damage. You withdraw access. You take away information. You stop including them in conversations that matter. You remove your energy, your presence, your approval. No grand announcement, no message sent, just subtraction. And what's left behind is a person spinning with no one to spin with. They'll panic. They'll try harder to provoke. They'll raise the volume. And the louder they get, the more foolish they look, because you're not even playing anymore. Machiavelli understood the power of letting the enemy keep speaking, not to respond, but to expose themselves. You don't need to defend. You let the crowd draw their own conclusion. Because in the court of public perception, whoever looks least in control loses the war, even if they win the battle. And that's what this is, not a single strike, but a war of image, of framing, of psychological leverage. You don't destroy them with force. You destroy them with contrast. You stay calm. They unravel. You speak slowly. They stutter. You move on. They obsess. And eventually, everyone around them begins to realize they are not a threat. They are a warning. Not because of what you said, but because of what you never had to say at all. Destruction without attack is not a tactic. It's a philosophy, a way of moving through conflict so that your power isn't displayed, it's felt. Because anyone can lash out, but only those with control can collapse someone without touching them. This is the second layer of Machiavellian strategy. Weaponize their need for attention. Your enemy craves reaction, not because they're strong, but because they're hollow. Disrespect, provocation, slander, these aren't signs of power. They're signs of starvation, emotional starvation, social starvation, a desperation to matter at your expense. So when they target you, it's not about you, it's about trying to siphon your energy, your name, your reputation, your spotlight. And here's how you destroy them without attack. You let them chase your shadow until they collapse. You say nothing, you do nothing, and you move forward, publicly, privately, powerfully. You keep building, you keep creating. You stay focused on your mission, not their noise. And what happens? They look smaller with every attempt. They begin to look obsessed, unstable, insecure. You've shifted the story from you versus them to them chasing you. And nothing looks more powerless than that. This is Machiavelli's brilliance. He understood that attention is leverage. And once you know someone wants it more than you do, you control them. You create silence around them. You stop mentioning their name. You never speak ill of them, not because you're moral, but because you're strategic. Every time they speak about you and you say nothing, their voice begins to echo. People start to notice, asking why they are always talking about you, why they are so focused on someone who isn't even engaging, wondering if something is wrong with them. Doubt sets in. And in Machiavellian terms, doubt is decay. Because once their image becomes questionable, everything they say starts to lose value. And that's when you strike, not with aggression, but with contrast. You show up composed, dressed sharply, speaking calmly, delivering value, unbothered, unfazed, and unreactive, while they stumble, rant, and cling to relevance by dragging your name. And without you lifting a finger, the gap grows. They wanted to damage you, but in trying to do so, they exposed how much you matter, and how little they do without you. That's how you destroy someone without attack. You become the proof of their irrelevance. Now, there's another layer, one deeper, one they never see coming. Because not everyone will attack you publicly. Some will work behind the scenes. They'll smile to your face and sow doubt in private. They'll frame your actions as selfish, your success as undeserved, your intentions as toxic. These enemies are not looking for war. They're looking for erosion. Slow, silent sabotage. And this is where most people fail. They try to defend themselves to everyone. They try to correct the narrative. But the more you explain, the more you validate the existence of the rumor. Machiavelli would never do that. He would leverage the attacker's own behavior to set the trap. So here's what you do. You become more visible, not less. You elevate your name through actions. You perform with excellence in front of the very people they whisper to. You speak clearly in meetings. You make bold, intelligent moves in public. You show consistency, integrity, composure, without ever mentioning their name. Why? Because you're letting the observers compare you to the story being told. And when the story doesn't match your presence, the storyteller becomes the liar. That's the collapse. And you didn't have to expose them. They exposed themselves by betting on your silence to mean guilt. But your silence was never weakness. It was setup. You were letting them build the rope, and now they're hanging from it. This is the ultimate form of psychological destruction. You don't need them to lose. You just need them to lose you. You exit their orbit, you move without them, and you let their obsession rot in the dark. They try to destroy you by dragging you down. Instead, they've trapped themselves in a cage of their own bitterness while you ascend, and everyone sees it, because power never needs to shout. It just needs to remain standing. Destruction, when done right, doesn't look like an explosion. It looks like silence around a name that used to matter. It looks like the absence of acknowledgement, the evaporation of attention, the subtle withdrawal of power that no one can point to directly, but everyone can feel. That's why Machiavelli never taught men to go to war first. He taught them to become so indispensable, so visible, so undeniably competent, that anyone who tried to destroy them would instead destroy themselves. This is your third weapon, exposure through contrast.